Tonight, Melbourne rocked by fierce thunderstorms and flash flooding, sparking hundreds of calls for help.
Residents in border towns facing rivers at record levels and rising. The latest live.
Also, an 11-month-old's miracle survival after mayhem at a Broadmeadows childcare centre.
Australia strikes a landmark security deal with Japan.
Gina Reinhart rips up her $15 million sponsorship of Netball Australia.
And racing mourns a legendary jockey as Animo storms to Cox Plate glory.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Mike Amor and Rebecca Madden.
Good evening. Melbourne has been lashed by heavy rain, thunderstorms and flash flooding as emergency crews respond to hundreds of calls for help.
The situation is even worse in towns along the border, with residents now facing rivers at record levels and rising. Sarah Jones leads tonight's coverage.
Shockwaves across the sky as fierce storms deliver heavy rain and flash flooding. Up to 40 millimetres falling across parts of Melbourne, cutting off power to 16,000 homes. Melburnians waking to chaos, traffic lights out, roads forced to close, cars stranded, just days after our last devastating flooding event.
It would have scared them. Yeah.
But, it was scaring us.
Very heavy rainfall across some parts of the state on already very wet grounds.
The Geelong area hardest hit.
Wow. There's a road there and a bridge.
The SES receiving 140 calls for help across the state's southwest, including water rescues and building damage.
Watch and act messages being issued for Hamilton and also for parts of Geelong through to the Werribee region, where we saw flash flooding.
Fire Rescue Victoria is also investigating whether this major factory blaze in North Shore was caused by lightning. The heavy downfall enough to abandon last night's races at Moonee Valley.
And that was the loudest clap of thunder I've ever heard.
But it didn't stop punters partying. Swimmers are being urged to avoid all of Melbourne's 36 beaches due to poor water quality as heavy rain and flooding pollutes Port Phillip Bay.
Download that Vic Emergency app so you can stay across this advice.
The rain has cleared here for now, but other parts of the state are now bracing for another lashing. Sarah Jones, 7 News.
Paul Dowsley has the latest from Echuca, and Paul, the border towns are on edge tonight.
Mike, both residents in Echuca and Moama over the other side of the river are holding their breath, and some of the inundations we've seen today have become local attractions because residents have really never seen anything like this before. Today they smashed a 29-year flood record by 3 centimetres. Tomorrow even more, about 23 more centimetres starting largely tomorrow night. But it seems for now all the planning, the intense work of these residents through the week has largely paid off. The Great Dirt Wall of Echuca, built this week to protect most of the town, did its job today, keeping the water out. But some homes on the wrong side were swamped.
Drink cans and watch it happen.
It's a bit disappointing when you get told, stiff, just deal with it.
I get why they done it. I understand why they done it. Just, for the greater good, but I just hope that everyone remembers it. Everyone on that side remembers it when it's come time to clean up, that we were sacrificed for them.
As the rain came down in big bursts, the flood level went beyond the previous 1993 record.
There is still an emergency warning to evacuate immediately. We cannot guarantee that the levees will necessarily hold back the waters that are coming down the Murray at this point in time.
This was Ron Myers Street outside the levee yesterday and today swallowed. Behind the Echuca Library, a levee wall overwhelmed, the Murray cascading into an overflow catchment. This was this morning. By the afternoon, it was in full flow.
Once it's over here, it's serious.
About 25 minutes up the Murray, about 50 residents spent 5 days building a sandbag levee on top of an existing sand levee to protect the local caravan park. But this afternoon, the worst possible outcome.
We had about 6 high around the whole park, about 3 wide, 4 wide in spots, and there's not much you can do, there's too much force. She gave way, and within 2 minutes, it was all over.
Oh, it's devastating. Sort of, we've put everything into it, so.
The couple knew the water had won.
Run. Grab what you can and run. It was coming in that fast.
And still, it continues to rise. Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
An 11-month-old girl caught up in a terrifying childcare crush at Broadmeadows has been discharged from hospital.
3 people were injured in the mayhem when an out-of-control car ploughed through the front of the building.
Little Hanan is well on her way to a full recovery, and she's already got the story of a lifetime. After a driver ploughed through Bright Beginnings head office in Broadmeadows. A simple act of wiping her granddaughter's nose could have been their last moment together. New angles capture the moment the driver hit accelerator instead of brake, not only striking 11-month-old Hanan and her grandmother Aisha, but also the centre's educational leader. Remarkably, all 3 escaped with only minor injuries. Shaken and stunned at what they just survived. As the tiny toddler was placed on a stretcher, all she wanted was a comforting cuddle. Dressed in the same jumpsuit, Hanan was in brighter spirits hours later in hospital.
That's a bruise, and there's another bruise on her hand, and of course on her head, and then there's one on her back.
As her grandfather and centre manager comprehends how bad it could have been.
Everything happened within seconds, that emotions spread right through. The girls were happy coming to work, and suddenly everybody's crying, shaken up, devastated. It's the first one. You know, when you're grandfather, it's a different feeling. It's one of your own.
Hanan is now out of hospital and at home recovering with her mother, who says although her baby is tired and restless, their entire family knows how close they came to what could have been a tragic outcome.
Life it's quick, it's a flash. You just don't know if you're going to stay here tomorrow or not.
Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
The state opposition claims Victoria's public housing operator is crying out for a bailout to prevent it from financial collapse. Homes Victoria has appealed to the Treasurer for a significant cash injection, according to documents released under Freedom of Information.
It is an extraordinary document, and it makes quite clear that Homes Vic is a basket case.
We shouldn't be worried about whether or not we're breaking even or if we're making money on public housing provision. We should just be doing it.
The Andrews government says rent review and Commonwealth funding for public housing have declined over the past decade.
Australia and Japan have signed a landmark new security pact scaling up military and economic ties. The declaration is promising a path for closer cooperation as concern grows about China's dominance in the Indo-Pacific.
Gearing up for a uniquely Australian experience.
There we go.
Worth the initial awkwardness for the photo op.
They're like big teddy bears.
Even if it took a bit of convincing to say goodbye. From one humorous handover to another. And the reason for Fumio Kishida's visit to Perth, signing a new joint security declaration, updating the agreement struck between John Howard and Shinzo Abe in 2007.
This landmark declaration sends a strong signal to the region of our strategic alignment.
Lifting intelligence sharing and military cooperation to a new level.
The strengthening of Australia-Japan Special Strategic Partnership will play an important role
in promoting peace and stability.
Promising to consult each other on issues that affect regional stability and to work together to address them.
It's a step up in the relationship at a critical point when both Japan and Australia are facing a serious challenge from China.
This is very welcome. Japan is Australia's best friend in Asia.
A new partnership on critical minerals was also signed today. Both countries agreeing to build secure supply chains of the elements essential in clean energy technologies. In the meantime, though, Japan remains heavily reliant on Australian gas and coal for its energy needs. And the recent turmoil over domestic supply and cost pressures sent jitters through the Japanese economy. Anthony Albanese reassuring his counterpart Australia remains a reliable partner in energy and the Indo-Pacific. Rob Scott, 7 News.
Donald Trump has been ordered to testify under oath in an explosive twist to the Capitol building riots. The ultimatum comes as Mr. Trump's former chief strategist is jailed for ignoring a similar subpoena.
To the congressional inquiry into Washington's insurrection, he's the supreme villain.
The central cause of January 6th was one man, Donald Trump.
Today, the inquiry finally ordered the 45th president to testify. Their letter claims overwhelming evidence President Trump personally orchestrated and oversaw an effort to reverse his election loss, spreading false allegations of voter fraud and attempting to corrupt the US Justice Department. The subpoena demands by November 4th he surrender documents and communications, including encrypted texts. On or about the 14th, he must appear for questions that could last days.
Lock him up! Traitor! Thank you, ma'am.
This as former Trump advisor Steve Bannon cops a 4-month jail sentence and $10,000 fine for defying a similar subpoena.
We'll have a very vigorous appeals process. I've got a great legal team.
Bannon remains free pending the appeal. Trump is yet to respond to his subpoena, though calls the January 6 inquiry a total bust.
If Trump did appear, it would be a highly charged spectacle. That might be attractive for the former president. More likely, his lawyers won't let him go near it. They'll stall for time, expecting a new Congress next year will kill off the inquiry.
In the United States, Tim Lester, 7 News.
Netball Australia has lost its $15 million sponsorship deal with Gina Rinehart's Hancock Prospecting. Indigenous netballer Danelle Wallum didn't want to wear the company's logo on her uniform because of comments Lang Hancock made back in the 1980s. In a statement, Hancock Prospecting says it didn't want to add to the team disunity. Netball Australia has suffered more than $7 million worth of losses over the past 2 years.
Australian companies could be fined hundreds of millions of dollars if they don't secure the personal data of customers. The push for new laws comes off the back of hacking scandals at Medibank and Optus.
As authorities hunt the latest corporate hacker, today a crackdown on the hacked.
Australians who share their personal information with companies are entitled to expect that that information will be cared for properly.
For companies that don't and get hit by serious or repeated data breaches,
it is a very, very substantial increase in the penalties. It's designed to make companies think. It's designed to be a deterrent.
Boosting the fine from $2.2 million to $50 million, or 3 times what the company might have made from the misuse of the data, or 30% of its turnover at the time.
Big companies could face penalties up to hundreds of millions of dollars.
The truth is that for Optus customers and Medibank customers, this is too little, too late.
Australia's Information Commissioner would also get stronger powers to ensure companies come clean about any data breaches. As a new survey reports, 70% of businesses have suffered a ransomware attack.
A trend that we're seeing in Australia, which is a real increase in cyber criminal activity.
It found the vast majority of those hit paid the ransom, almost half within 24 hours. The average ransom paid just over $1 million, but the survey found they'd be willing to pay even more. As power giant Energy Australia reveals, a cyber attack exposed the data of around 300 customers using its online payment system. It's now requiring longer and stronger passwords. Paul Kadak, 7 News.
Boris Johnson is poised to make an astonishing return to Downing Street, cutting short his Caribbean holiday to return to political chaos in London. Mr Johnson says he's up for the challenge as the race to replace Liz Truss intensifies.
Morning, Mr Sunak. Think you'll be Prime Minister next week?
Yet to declare, but the apparent frontrunner, former Chancellor Rishi Sunak, in the frame to replace Liz Truss as British Prime Minister. The only declared candidate, Penny Mordaunt, who ran for the leadership and came third just weeks ago. Boris Johnson has been in the Dominican Republic, now plotting a return to power. Polls suggest he's popular with the Tory base and at least some MPs.
Have to think about that legitimacy question that the public will be asking themselves, and also about who could win the next election. That's obviously important for any political party at the time. So, at the moment, I would lean towards Boris Johnson.
Some others are said to be threatening to defect to Labor or quit Parliament, forcing by-elections if the former PM is politically resurrected.
Boris is a man of many talents, but he's had his chance and he blew it.
Boris Johnson's biggest challenge, overcoming his past. He's still under investigation, accused of misleading Parliament. Memories of lockdown parties here at Downing Street linger too.
He lied, no morals.
Boris is too much of a risk. It's good fun, but I don't think we want him again.
But it's only MPs and potentially 170,000 Conservative Party members who'll get to decide again. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
The racing world is tonight mourning the loss of legendary jockey Harry White. He won a record 4 Melbourne Cups, but the 78-year-old's greatest legacy came off the track.
For Australia's consummate horseman, a fitting tribute from his fellow jockey.
Black armbands from the jockeys in this race, respect to a wonderful man and rider, Harry White.
Harry White won his very first race at 15 years old. He won 4 Melbourne Cups in just 6 years.
And Think Big's won it.
Most famously, a Think Big double.
And Think Big's going to win it 2 years in succession.
His relationship with trainer Bart Cummings, unique.
The man that would fall asleep in the change rooms before the race and Bart would have to go in and wake him up.
Think Big and another of his cup winners, Hyperno, retired to Harry's farm and are buried there.
I'm just happy that I was able to look after the boys because they looked after me.
AFL legend Crackers Keenan helped care for Harry, who suffered from MS, but still kick-started a fund for struggling jockeys.
He gave the Jockeys Association $500,000. Just wrote the cheque. That's the type of bloke Harry White was.
But it was a mateship with benefits.
He could actually tell you when a horse was going to win. And he used to tell me that too.
So you bained a bit out of him?
I did very well out of Harry White.
The Melbourne Cup winning jockey now receives the Harry White Trophy.
You wouldn't get a better honour anywhere in the world.
Fair dinkum. As it sums Harry White up, bloody fair dinkum.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
Just beautiful. Well, one of Australia's greatest sporting names has returned to the throne. Andrew McCormack, James Cummings has joined his famous grandfather with glory at the Valley.
He certainly has, Beck. A Cox Plate victory for the ages and redemption for James Cummings. The pressure was on for race favourite Animo. He and jockey James McDonald delivered.
But it's Animo clear. I'm thunderstruck late. Animo holding on. Animo this time for the big A. Won it from I'm thunderstruck El Monagon.
It's a humbling experience for me. It's an unbelievable feeling.
Those are the races that you live and dream of as a kid. And now I'm feeling it. It's incredible.
I'll have more from the Valley in sport. Also, find out what's got Aussie legend Ricky Ponting fired up.
It's a disgrace as far as I'm concerned.
Plus, once upon a time in Hollywood in the Red Bull garage, and a D's recruit has spoken publicly for the first time in red and blue. We'll hear from him shortly.
OK, thanks, Macca. With Melbourne's rental crisis deepening, protesters are taking their fights to the steps of Parliament. Details next on 7 News.
Also ahead, the life-changing medication now available for just a fraction of the price.
Tennis rocked by a doping scandal involving the former world #1.
The casino heist ends in highway robbery.
And later, Melbourne's big fat street party celebrating all things Greek. Desperate tenants are taking their fight for more affordable housing to the steps of Parliament. They're demanding urgent reform as the average cost of renting reaches record highs.
This is what $425 a week gets you in suburban Melbourne, a two-bedroom apartment in Preston.
Rent increases are totally out of control.
New data shows only a quarter of homes in Melbourne are available for under $400 per week. It's a price many can't afford.
A lot of our members are forgoing medicine and food in order to pay their rent.
There is more rental stock coming on the market and similar levels to what we've seen previously. They're just getting snapped up really, really quickly just as that demand continues to outweigh supply.
Tenants are now fighting back.
There's no housing shortage in Australia. There's a policy shortage.
Rallying Spring Street to amend the law.
We're here to demand that the Victorian State Government legislate rent caps to tie rent increases to the median wage.
In March 2021, the state government changed rental laws to give more power back to the tenants. And although there's no current legislation stopping landlords from increasing prices, renters can still challenge it with Consumer Affairs.
Rental price caps can have unintended consequences in making it less attractive to invest in new rental supply.
Renters also want an independent ombudsman to deal with complaints instead of leaving it in the hands of the state government.
There are huge waiting times if you apply for CAV.
It was a real struggle to actually try and get anything actioned, which for me only meant a $20 reduction per week to live in a mouldy, stinky, horrible place.
Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
A medicine that fights bone disease is one of 4 life-changing drugs being added to the pharmaceutical benefit scheme. Until now, it would have cost patients $300,000 a year to access.
Like many 13-year-olds, Noah Mullen loved his footy until he realised he could no longer play.
He would come off in tears, his legs were hurting that much. I couldn't go on because they would just hurt.
The teenager was diagnosed with XLH. The rare genetic disease affects around 250 people in Australia, weakening bones, muscles and teeth.
We obviously hit the panic button. It was a very, very frightening time.
Noah's life was turned upside down, and the drug Crysvita, which helps the bones to function normally, was out of reach until now.
This listing is the first new substantial therapy for this condition for decades.
Soon, those living with XLH will only have to pay, at most, $42.50 a month for the injection, compared to $360,000 a year.
They can just be a normal 13-year-old.
The drug is one of 4 new life-changing treatments to be added to the PBS. Others include a high-cost medicine used to treat one of the most common forms of skin cancer. Almost 1 million Australians skip their medication because they can't afford them. It's hoped that will now change. Nathan Regter, 7 News.
Former world number 1 tennis player Simona Halep has been provisionally suspended after testing positive to a banned drug at the US Open. The 2-time major winner is vowing to fight any doping ban and says the idea of cheating has never crossed her mind and it's the biggest shock of her life. The 31-year-old says the situation is unfair and she feels completely confused and betrayed.
It was raining cash on a major highway in Chile after a robbery in the capital, Santiago. The thieves threw bags of cash out the windows of their van as they were chased by police. 6 suspects were eventually arrested. Police say they recovered most of the money. A class action is underway against one of Australia's largest EFTPOS providers. Exclusive details next on 7 News.
Also ahead, the end of an era for the Spirit of Tasmania will cross live.
How children in Ukraine are learning the harsh lessons of nuclear war.
And Lonsdale Street turns blue and white for the return of the Greek festival.
Victorian Greens Senator Lydia Thorpe is facing increasing calls to resign from Parliament. Ms Thorpe says former partner Dean Martin was no longer involved with the Rebels bikie gang when they met, and committee information was treated in confidence.
The Greens talk a very big game when it comes to integrity. They say they're a party of integrity. They've been campaigning on these issues for some time.
Senator Thorpe has denied ever being in a bikie club room with Martin, who's the uncle of Richmond star Dustin.
The Spirit of Tasmania is about to depart Station Pier for the final time.
Kathleen O'Connor is at Port Melbourne tonight. Kathleen, this marks a major change in travel to Tassie.
Beck, it means that from tomorrow, if you want to travel to Tasmania by boat, you'll need to board in Geelong. A new $135 million passenger and freight terminal has been built at Corio Quay, and that's where both ships will dock. In about an hour from now, the Spirit of Tasmania will depart Station Pier for the final time. Port Melbourne has been the mainland home for the Bass Strait Ferry for the past 37 years. And while this ship is making its way out of the bay, at the same time, the second Spirit ferry will be setting out for Geelong, where it's set to dock at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. The first voyage from Corio Quay to Devonport will depart at 6:45. And it's not the only transformation on its way for the Spirit of Tassie. Brand new state-of-the-art ships are on its way. The first one coming next year, the second in 2024. Beck and Mike.
Kathleen, thank you. Thousands of small business owners are launching a class action over crippling EFTPOS problems. They say outages cost them tens of millions of dollars at the worst possible time.
Tyro prides itself on better business banking, but 11,000 customers were left worse off last January.
You want to run a successful, profitable business, but it wasn't the case that week, it was terrible.
Charles Bannister has launched a class action against the bank, claiming the outage affecting Tyro's EFTPOS machines cost customers tens of millions of dollars.
The businesses range in industries from retail to hospitality to some in healthcare.
So serious it sent some to the wall. This was a beloved Bustleton bookshop and had been running for 17 years.
It was heartbreaking, and it's literally a family business. My oldest daughter worked there with me, so she lost her income as well.
Not Just Cakes owner on the Central Coast, Linda Beasley, says the timing couldn't have been worse. Retail was only just recovering from lockdown.
One of our stores we were down for 9 days, and the other store we were down for 11. Between those two, it's probably 25 to 30,000.
Businesses affected by the Tyro outage are being urged to read the court notice they received carefully. They have until October 30 to join the class action. Otherwise, they'll miss out on any payout if a settlement is reached. Tyro claims all merchants have been given the opportunity to claim any financial losses caused by the connectivity incident. But many say compensation doesn't go far enough.
You definitely want them to be held accountable.
Ashley Hansen, 7 News.
Ukraine is warning Russia is planning to blow up a hydroelectric dam on the Dnipro River. Breaching the dam would send a wall of water towards the city of Kherson, which Ukrainian troops hope to recapture in a major offensive.
And as war rages around them, Ukrainian schoolchildren are being taught how to survive a nuclear attack.
They're fighting here to prevent further casualties in this conflict, protecting education and their students. Today's lesson, landmines. Interrupted by one of Kyiv's air raid sirens. The kids know what to do. It's a daily routine with added urgency given recent attacks. Hurry, says the teacher. Coats on, they head to the shelter, playing games to keep calm.
We try to teach them to survive in this difficult time.
With Vladimir Putin's threats, that now includes being taught how to survive a nuclear explosion. This protective gear isn't enough alone, she explains, before simulating nuclear fallout. The surreal session in darkness during one of the capital's scheduled blackouts.
Oh, the lights went on.
When asked if they're worried.
Не страшно. Not scared. Not. Russia has damaged and destroyed almost 2,500 educational facilities across this country over the 8-month conflict. So for now, it's still up to parents as to whether they feel comfortable sending their kids to school.
In Kyiv, Ukraine, Sarah Greenodge, 7 News.
Melbourne's Greek community is out in force for a celebration 18 months in the making. Lonsdale Street is tonight playing host to the biggest Greek festival anywhere in Australia.
The food, the music, and the fun. Melbourne's Greek community has plenty to celebrate.
We're proud of who we are. We feel we punch above our weight a little bit. We're a lot of fun and we definitely know how to party.
The dreary weather didn't deter crowds from gathering on Lonsdale Street for the 34th Antipodes Festival.
We are the Greek Festival in Melbourne!
The annual street party is the world's largest celebration of Greek culture outside Greece, with Melbourne home to the largest Greek population in Australia.
Lots and lots of food, there's amusement rides, there's lots of entertainment, dancing, there's international artists. It's a lot of fun, a lot of family fun.
The free event continues tonight and tomorrow.
It concludes Sunday night at 10 o'clock. We kick all the way through till midnight tonight. So, yeah, it's a big weekend in Melbourne.
Estelle Greepink, 7 News.
Hungry now.
Looks a lot of fun.
It does. 6 million Australians are in urgent need of finding a new diet. That story is up next on 7 News.
Also ahead, our city lights up for the women of Iran.
And we meet the Melbourne Daredevils on the ride of their lives. Major Melbourne landmarks have lit up in the colours of Iran's flag in support of Iranian women and girls fighting for gender equality. Protests and violence have erupted across the Islamic nation over the past 5 weeks following the death of a 22-year-old woman in police custody.
6 million Australians aren't eating enough fruit and vegetables, according to nutritionists. Now the fight is on to reduce waste, help families save money and reverse that disturbing dietary trend.
Goodness-packed dishes can look so inviting, but post-pandemic research shows 6 million Australians are only eating 1 serve or less of vegetables a day.
Our health is deteriorating, we're eating less vegetables, and that's a huge impact not only on our well-being but our mental health.
National Nutrition Week wants to blend 2 strong messages. Eat more fresh produce and waste less by using the whole vegetable from root to tip.
There's nothing wrong with these, they're super fresh, they're just a little bit too small.
Nutrition Australia says the average household throws away up to $2,500 worth of food each year. Good and Fugly is a business fighting to reduce that waste.
So we speak to our growers every day and they let us know what kind of excess produce they've got or Fuglies that they have and they ship it to us.
By the afternoon, these boxes are delivered to paying customers.
Nutritionists and chefs alike believe the key to reducing food waste is about changing bad habits and your mindset. Instead of buying more groceries to use up what you've got, challenge yourself to work with what's left.
Allowing families to love their leftovers. Ashley Hansen, 7 News.
2 Melbourne Daredevils are about to embark on the trip of a lifetime, representing Australia in the World Skate Games. They've been using local suburban streets to prepare to face off against the best in the world.
Speeding and sliding around the back streets of Monbulk, Zach Mills-Goodwin and Julian Slaney are squeezing in some last-minute training. Zach on a speedboard, Julian on a luge.
It's a bit of a rush, but these days, after years of riding, it's really just relaxing. I love flying down a hill, just in control, and it's almost therapeutic for me these days.
The Daredevil pair will race for Australia next month in Argentina at the World Skate Games, an international Olympic event showcasing endurance, speed and skill.
My fastest speed is around 130 kilometres an hour. I do think the current world record is just under 170 kilometres an hour.
Kitted out in full leather and aerodynamic helmets, the sport is safer than it looks. Zach's worst injury, a dislocated shoulder.
It can be extremely technical. Certain roads require a lot more finesse and control when you're navigating really tight corners.
Even the world's best come to grief sometimes, and these locals are determined to give them some tough competition. But it's expensive and the team is appealing for help to fund the trip and make us proud.
Placing in the top 10 is a goal, but obviously my number one goal is to finish on the top step of the podium.
Recently, Zach became the first skater to conquer the world's steepest road, flying down Baldwin Street, Dunedin at 70 kilometres an hour. Just a warm-up, he says, for the big one.
I'm very excited to get out there.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Wow, workers at CUB's headquarters in Abbotsford are toasting a major milestone. They've just brewed their 50 millionth beer using solar panels on the roof of the 118-year-old factory building.
Pretty amazing to have a brewery with so much history get brought into the future in this kind of way that allows it to be a more sustainable business.
4,000 solar panels are fitted to the roof. Well, sport is next with Andrew McCormack. Andrew, it was redemption at Moonee Valley today.
Yeah, it was a great story, Beck. James Cummings has joined his grandfather Bart on the Cox Plate honour roll. Coming up next, how he and James McDonald delivered on one of the biggest stages in Aussie sport. Plus, the Aussies under the pump as a Kiwi emerging star lands the first blow. A former Bulldog speaks for the first time in new colours, and the NBA star hiding in plain sight. Welcome back. Animo has delivered Cox Plate glory for two of the biggest names in racing. James Cummings claimed his first victory in the race. Grandfather Bart won 5 times, while it was redemption for superstar jockey James McDonald.
Redemption for Australia's champion of the turf.
Animo holding on, Animo, this time for the big A.
Beaten by a nose last year, Animo back with a vengeance.
That's a proper horse race and the best horse race I've had anything to do with.
A Cummings with a Cox Plate once again. James emulating what grandfather Bart did 5 times. Jockey James McDonald adding another major to last year's Melbourne Cup.
Like, those are the races that you live and dream of as a kid. And now I'm feeling it. It's incredible.
23,000 fans back at the Valley for the first time in 3 years. Jostling for position as Animo settled 4th, 1 off the fence. He hit go at the final bend for the Stallions' 7th Group 1.
Went a tad earlier than I wanted to, but he was going to always sustain that gallop.
Now to see if he stays in Australia or goes overseas.
This horse, I think he'll get physically even better. It's just to the tip of the iceberg.
Perennial bridesmaid Bella Nipotina with her first Group 1.
Bella Nipotina, and boy, doesn't she deserve this!
In the rescheduled Manikato Stakes from last night, emerging stayer Francesco Guardi, one of 3 McDonald winners.
But it's all Francesco Guardi to win the Gold Cup easily.
As Barclay Square enhanced his Derby credentials, My Oberon irresistible in the Crystal Mile. In Warwick Kappa, a standout, best dressed to watch his runner and namesake, Kappa 39 in race 1.
It's got a big stride and a big leap like Warwick Kappa.
The Wizard Mark II rounding up the field on debut.
And Kappa 39 was last of the 6.
Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
To cricket, and Australia is facing a New Zealand onslaught to kick off its T20 World Cup defence. After winning the toss and sending the Kiwis in, Aaron Finch and the Aussies were on the back foot from ball 1. New Zealand a short time ago 1 for 65 after 6 overs, their highest ever power play in a T20 World Cup. A sold-out SCG. No team has won a T20 World Cup on home soil. Aaron Finch with the perfect start, winning the toss and electing to bowl under grey Sydney skies.
There's obviously a little bit of weather around, but we feel as though the wicket gets better and better here as the game goes on.
23-year-old Finn Allen set the tone for New Zealand. Mitchell Starc going the journey with the new ball.
Oh, that's even better. That is even better from Finn Allen.
14 runs off the opening over. The onslaught continued against Josh Hazlewood. The Kiwis off to a flyer, 29 without loss after 12 deliveries, and the luck going their way.
Oh, burst through the hands. Adam Zampa had an opportunity, would have been a terrific catch.
Fortune favours the brave. Allen dominating the Aussie attack.
And goes bang downtown straight towards us.
So very impressed with this young man.
But it wouldn't last.
Bowled him straight through.
Relief for the home team, and look how much it means to them. They were panicking.
Ricky Ponting, one of a host of Aussie greats who have gathered at the SCG for the tournament opener.
There's a lot of positive things for the Australian team right now, but you know, there are a lot of good teams in this tournament. I've had a look at England. England look very strong.
Ponting taking aim at the West Indies after the 2-time T20 champs were knocked out by Ireland.
It's a disgrace as far as I'm concerned. Even one of their main players not making it to the flight to get over here for a World Cup, you know, to me just sort of sums up probably how little these events mean to the West Indies players.
In Melbourne, the Indian flag already flying, 100,000 expected to pack the MCG tomorrow when India takes on arch rivals Pakistan. Melbourne recruit Lockie Hunter is settling in at the Demons after moving from the Dogs in the trade period. Hunter has a similar role in mind under Simon Goodwin.
Largely on the wing, maybe a little bit down back if rotations are needed down there, but hopefully Ed Langman on the other wing and away we go. I think you just want to come in and just put your head down and get to work.
The D's 1 to 4 year players aren't due back at the club until next month. North Melbourne has kept its AFLW top 4 hopes alive with an eye-catching win over Collingwood. Magpies captain Steph Chiocci thought she had narrowed the margin late in the third term, only to be denied after celebrating on the goal line. The Pies threatened to come back, but the Kangaroos held their nerve.
To make it lights out officially for the Pies. And the Kangaroos will move into 5th.
Last night, reigning premiers Adelaide denied Geelong its first win over the Crows with a thrilling 2-point victory. Australia has demolished Scotland at the Rugby League World Cup. The Kangaroos ran in 15 tries. Former Storm star Josh Addo-Carr scored 4 of his own.
Addo-Carr pushes it down the line. Addo-Carr! That's brilliant. Mike just delivered the moment of the tournament so far.
The final score an incredible 84-0. There was a touch of Hollywood for Formula One practice in Texas. A-lister Brad Pitt enjoyed a behind-the-scenes look to the Red Bull garage. Not all drivers, though, got through the opening session unscathed. Daniel Ricciardo's McLaren teammate Lando Norris had this nervous moment heading into pit lane. Ricciardo clocked the 3rd fastest time, but most of the field was trialling prototype tyres for next year. Ben Simmons and Paddy Mills have bounced back from their opening loss of the first season of the game as the Brooklyn Nets beat the Raptors 109-105. Steph Curry had all the moves in the Warriors' first home game of the season.
Oh, look at Curry. That was delightful.
But Curry's 34 points weren't enough as the Nuggets claimed a 128-123 win. Grizzlies guard Ja Morant produced 49 points in this incredible defensive block as Memphis defeated Houston, while Charlotte star Terry Rozier made a bit of a fashion statement in his post-match media conference. At least I think that was him. I think it was him. I'm told that was Terry Rozier. Halloween, another week away, but Terry, just, they love it in the States.
You said fashion statement. Is that fashion? Oh,
hey, I'm not the one who dictates the fashion terms. The NBA stars, they love it.
Yeah, they love it. I love it too, actually.
Thanks, Macca. Estelle Greepink is next with the weather. And Estelle, where more storms are on the way.
Yes, Mike, but we will get some dry breaks, and I'll tell you when next. Hello again. We've had a burst of wet weather today before a relatively dry afternoon. Those conditions, a taste of what's to come. This is what it looked like in the city today, where we reached a top of 19. And this is what our suburbs are looking like right now, so much more settled than this morning. Across the state today, we saw a band of showers move eastward over our central districts. Showers should ease from the west and throughout the night, but our flood-affected areas should brace for possible thunderstorms with heavy falls. These rivers in red and orange are still on high alert tonight. Taking a look at the satellite, and a cold front is moving through the Bass Strait. Tomorrow, a low pressure trough will extend over our north before pushing south on Monday and Tuesday. But tomorrow, we can expect isolated showers becoming scattered in the east and north during the day. There is the chance of potential thunderstorms in those areas. In our suburbs, we could see showers in the late afternoon and evening and a possible thunderstorm over suburbs in the northeast. The city could receive up to 5 millimetres of rain thanks to afternoon showers. To the 7-day outlook, and we'll need our umbrellas on Monday, with the city set to receive up to 30 millimetres of rain. The suburbs can expect showers and possibly a thunderstorm over the northwest. We dry out slightly on Tuesday, but we can expect a shower or two. Any showers on Wednesday should also be very light. On Thursday, we're looking cloudy with a possible morning shower before we round out the working week with another cloudy day or a shower or two. But before we get there, expect a few showers tomorrow afternoon. From a low of 13, we should reach 20. So the best time to get outside tomorrow is probably during the morning before the weather all turns, Mike.
Walk the dog early, you say.
Thank you.
Thanks, Estelle. And that's 7 News for this Saturday night.
For now, from the 7 News team, please take care. Good night. I don't
have a dog.